Welcome back, everyone. Today I have something really fun planned. I'm going to be making not one, but 2 Valentine's Day cards. And then you get to choose which one of them I will be giving my husband next weekend. So I'm going to be using the Always in My Heart stamp set with the coordinating floral heart dies and the real red ink. And that's it, other than paper. But those are going to be our stamp sets and dies for today. And we're going to start with the simpler of the 2 cards. So I have a crumb cake base cut and scored. This is cut at 4 1/4 by 11, scored in the middle. Now I really like crumb cake for bases. It's a nice neutral color. If you wanted to, you could stamp on it, although I made, we are using a white insert. It's a nice neutral color. A lot of dark colors stand bold against it. But also it coordinates really well with a specialty paper that we're going to be using today. This is the specialty paper that comes with that suite. This color is Sahara Sand, but it's just a shade lighter than the crumb cake. And we're going to be matting it on a red base. And if you notice, it's a really tight fit. I just wanted a little bit of that red showing. And we're going to put that right there. And for our focal point, we're going to be using this really cool You Had Me at Hello stamp. Now, one thing I noticed with this stamp in particular, because there's so much color in it, you really, really, really have to ink it up well. Because if you don't, you get blocks of color missing from the center and it doesn't look as good. Okay, so we just check, make sure we got some good coverage. And we're going to press down. I got a little ink on my block, so I just gotta be careful not to transfer that to my paper. Hold it for a minute or so. Lift up. And You Had Me at Hello. Okay, and what am I gonna do with this? Am I gonna plop it on the card like that? No, what I'm going to do is something called fussy cutting. So I'm gonna cut this heart out with my paper snips, which are some really nice sharp scissors that Stampin' Up sells. And if you notice, this is something I've learned from those who've gone before me. I keep my cutting hand still and I turn the paper. And you want to leave a little border. And then when I was designing this card, I decided this was nice, but I wanted something else to give it a little pop. So what I did is, this is actually a white ribbon, crinkled seam binding ribbon. It's actually white, but I used one of my Stampin' Blends markers in real red to dye the ribbon. So all the reds coordinate, and I'm going to use it to give that heart a little bit of a pop. So we're just gonna trim that. Okay, we'll just close the ink. Actually, before I close it, let me stamp the inside so we can put everything together in one shot. So on the inside, I'm going to stamp Be My Valentine. That's pretty simple. Now we can close the ink so we don't get any where it's not supposed to be. So now we'll attach everything together. We can start with the inside, the insert, and I'm just going to use my Tombow multi-purpose liquid glue for that. Just gonna get, oops, and I forgot my craft sheet. I don't want glue everywhere. This will stop it from getting glue on my paper and then sticking when I'm not supposed to be sticking to things. So we're just gonna put a little bit on the edges, not too much, because we don't want this to squirt out, right? So we're just gonna line it up. I cut it really close, so there's not too much of a border, just a little bit. Okay, so on the front, we're going to, before we attach this, I wanna put my ribbon on. So I figure the heart's gonna go down here. So I'm gonna put the ribbon here, and how I do that, I take, this is the Stampin' Seal Plus. I just put a little bit on the back here. Put the ribbon across. We don't want to pull too tightly. We don't want it to bend. It just captures the ribbon real nice. It's not quite even, so I can very easily lift it up and put it exactly how I want it to be. There we go. Cut the excess off. I'll put on my liquid glue because I want that extra bit of movement when I attach the card bases, because it's really important to get the dimensions right. Put a little glue on that ribbon. Now remember, it's a very, very fine border, okay? So the liquid glue lets me move it to get it where I want it. That's perfect. Press down. And then I'm going to attach this to my card base. Once again, just on the edges, a little bit in the center. Not enough to make it eke out a little bit. Put this, we have a nice border. So that red shows up beautifully against that crumb cake. And then for the heart, I'm just gonna take some dimensionals. I'm gonna put it at an angle over that piece of ribbon just to give it some interest. I like to put a fair amount of dimensionals on, just because we don't want it to be uneven and sink down. So that's just gonna go right there like that. And that is card number 1. Nice, simple, masculine Valentine's Day card. Now, card number 2 is gonna be a little bit more complicated than that. So many of these pieces for card number 2 I have cut out already. Now, as opposed to the tan and red, we're still going with red, but we're going with red and black. Now, same kind of base. I cut it at 11 by 4 1/4, scored it in the center. We've got a white piece for the inside, okay? And just remember to fold and burnish. Okay. Now the outside is where the fun is, okay? In this die set, now I cut this beforehand because I didn't want to take up your time cutting this out, but this gorgeous die cuts out like this. It's really pretty, and it's going to show up beautifully against the black. So I cut it out of red foil paper. But what I did is the foil paper I'm going to use as a mat underneath this black, and it's going to go like that. Now, before we do that, I don't want to leave this black paper plain. I want to do something interesting with it. And what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to dry emboss it. Now, to do that, I'm going to need my Stampin' Up Emboss machine. And let's hope this fits in the frame. Yeah, because this is the bigger machine. They do sell the mini. It's now available. And we're going to be using the Dainty Diamonds 3D embossing folder. Now what I'm going to do, I think you can see a little bit over here. I'm going to just place the paper in the folder like so. Now the directions are right on the plate for how to do a 3D embossing folder. This, you just need the base plate and plate number 4. I'm just going to put it on. We're going to roll it through. It rolls through very easily. My table's shaky, but it's my table. It has nothing to do with the machine. And then we open this up. We've got this beautiful texture on the paper. And it's 3D. You can actually feel the texture. And it changed just a blah black background to something special. Just put my machine away. So we're going to take this, let's do some stamping first, so we get that out of the way. So we're going to use that same Real Red ink. And this is something else that was in the die set. It's actually this die right here. And these sections here, they actually cut. They don't cut, they create score lines. And I'll show you what to do with that in a second. This is actually the front. So we're gonna stamp that Be My Valentine on this cute little banner here. Now, forgive me if I don't get this. It's a little tricky to do with the camera. Okay. Now, the score lines mean you fold on them. And when you're done folding, you get this really cool 3D banner. That's going to look really cool on the card. Now, a couple of tricks and tips. We are going to be putting this embossed paper over the red foil. Don't use liquid glue with foil paper. If you get liquid glue on the foil, it makes a mess, and it just really, it just messes up the shine of the foil, and you have to start all over. So I'm going to use that Stampin' Seal Plus, which is very sticky. I like it better than the Stampin' Seal. It just rolls on a little bit easier. Now, this is going to be tricky because remember we have that very narrow border, and I don't get a second chance, okay? It's hard to do with the camera in the way. Let's do the best we can. Okay, pretty good. Okay, now remember, that's where I cut out the center. So I shouldn't have gone down the center, but that's okay because that's going to get attached to this space here. We can do the same thing. Just put the Stampin' Seal Plus on the edges. And as I said, it's very sticky. It's not moving once we put it on the base. Center that. So it's a little tricky for me to do this under the camera. Okay. Here we go. Nice and center. Okay, so I'm going to be putting my red foil over this. Now, I said that don't use the liquid glue on the foil. I'm actually not going to use my Stampin' Seal Plus for this. I'm actually going to be using a dot roll adhesive. The dot glue is a bit more forgiving, I've noticed, than the regular roller adhesives, just because it's not a full sheet of adhesive. So it works really well on these tiny embellishment items, and this is just a personal preference. It's not a Stampin' Up product, so I won't be able to link it to you. However, you can probably get away with using glue dots instead, or, as I said, the Stampin' Seal. So I'm going to put my little heart right in the center here. Okay. And then I'm going to take my banner. And actually, I was going to put dimensionals on it, but I don't think it needs the dimensionals because it's already three-dimensional. If I had glued it, I can glue it together and do it that way. Actually, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to glue it together and then pop it up on dimensional. So let's do that. Little liquid glue here. Little liquid glue here. Here. And we're going to put a bunch of dimensionals on back. Once again, I like to put them on evenly. Just want to make sure I have one on that edge piece there. Okay, and then we are going to put this on the front of the card. Okay, so that's card number 2. So we have 2 very different cards made with the same stamp set. Both very masculine, subtle Valentine's Day cards. Your job is, in the comments, to let me know which one I should give my husband next weekend. Okay, I also wanted to remind you 2 things. Mini catalog is still available, but Celebration only goes until February 28th. So you only have 2 weeks to get in those orders to earn free items. Also, you only have 2 days to subscribe to this month's paper pumpkin. The links will be in the description. Remember to use my host code if you are placing an order. If you have any questions, leave a comment or email me, and I will help you out as best I can. Thank you for watching. Stamp on.